I will start off with this thing. This is based on a few topics on this, but I'll start off with this thing I was talking about, the RDIF chips underneath people's skin and that, and the theory based on this and what I'll talk about these RDIF chips, right? What they're saying they'll introduce in 2017, where as I say, there was something more sinister to that as well. But I don't believe this 2017 thing tied in with this new world order / world martial law thing, because as it see this, NATO forces are on Russia's borders. They've been on their borders for a while now. So this World War III, or what leads from that, is obviously going to happen soon, right? And tied in with this thing I was saying about this martial law, what will happen while World War III's going on? Control of the biggest country while the world's distracted. The way I'm seeing this, right, is, to do with take away your privacy. Basically, these RDIF chips, will be implanted into people's skin without their choice, after this martial law comes along. In America anyway, with the start of the world martial law / new world order, right? This is the way I'm seeing this, right? And, basically, what people would be, they'll be, basically prisoners, man, of this martial law that starts in America for starters. They'll be dictated to, they'll basically be prisoners in their own country, freedom's taken away. And, basically that thing is, these RDIF chips, the way I see, because apparently I've tracking devices in them, I believe as well, is, basically they wouldn't be able to escape as prisoners if they were going to try to escape. This is the way I'm seeing it theoretically. There's a lot of weird things about that, and it makes more sense to me to why, these RDIF chips are, they're just like sinister fronts to say, basically, like the apps thing which have tracking locations, they're basically saying these things have pros for you. The software app like GPS is a pro for you, right? It's there for you, so if you get lost, you got basically sat nav on your phone. The skin under the RDIF chips under your skin are pros for you. They're for you just in case you get ill and that ambulance comes along, we can scan and save you quick. But there's also advantages for them, to both of them, as seen already with the apps on these mobile phones with the GPS and that. The pro for them is basically they can track you wherever you go already with those phones. And the pro for them, where they're not being fully honest about it for these RDIF chips, is what I was on about. When this martial law in America starts as first country to take over the start of the world martial law, new world order, basically these will be chips to make sure nobody can escape. And if they do, they know who they are, because, based on this thing where it has all your identity based on it. So if you've escaped, right, and they know you're missing from basically what we call a prison in prison camp, right, which you'll go on to, and they see you on camera. These cameras or whatever things will scan you as a prisoner in this martial law, and it'll say if you're the person who's basically on the run. Because I'm tying this in with a decent theory based on this martial law thing in America mainly, right, which is about to come up. And someone was saying, a conspiracy theorist, they were saying that Walmarts and that basically something to do with this could be decent detention centres. You can have people grouped up basically inside this big Walmart, right? Like a big supermarket sized place, superstore. And basically they're all confined. It's like a detention centre. And basically what I was reading across, what I was seeing, that a lot of Walmart stores have closed down recently or something like that in America. And to me that's saying, right, basically, when these people, when this martial law thing comes along, and where they're basically prisoners, that these people will be grouped up like in a big prison room, being dictated to in these empty Walmarts. And these are signs that that this is getting closer already. They're just preparing for it, and there's a lot to this. What I'll start topic for starters, referring back to New Orleans, I think it was. There were I know it was a natural storm there a few years ago. And, basically what they did, and the way I see this, was actually like a slide drill. There was some kind of big place in New Orleans or somewhere where everyone was taken to for a refuge or whatever because of the storms. And the way I see this was a sinister way of them basically seeing how easy it is to crowd people up and that, and confine them in a big building, but, if applicated in control terms, martial law terms, that's the way they would do it. And, basically the way I'm seeing it is they would do that across the American nation, with all these Walmarts that are slowly closing down, which is a sign that this martial law is about to start soon in America. And all this World War III thing's about to happen soon. This is theoretical, but me tying things together. Then we'll move on to, stay on this topic. Something to do, DHA, I think it's like the Home Defense Department or something in America. And this was told ages ago, man. Basically, if anyone saw that, and you can look this up, I'll try to get the articles, but, basically they've been buying so many bullets, right, for home defense for federal forces, army and that, but mostly federal forces, police and that. Billions of rounds in the past few years, insane amounts. And, there's no really justifiable reason to it. But when you tie this thing in with this martial law thing, in America, what's about to happen, theoretically, it's telling me more. It's so they have enough ammunition. Who knows what they'll do. Maybe people who rebel against them and stuff like that, so they've got enough ammunition, just to control people. They have no other reason. And when I'm putting these dots together, there's something very, a lot of people were suspicious about why this home defense in America was suddenly buying all this ammunition and that, especially mainly for federal forces, not mainly in the army and that, that doesn't make sense for starters. So, there's things suspicious about that. And, what I saw before as well, like ammunition bans in a lot of states. I don't know if that's going on at the moment, but there was firearms amnesty, basically firearms bans. A lot of people having their firearms in America taken away, without justifiable reasons. And then, even ammo bans. And, based on this theory that, if this martial law comes along, they know there will be vigilantes, who will, defend themselves when they see what's really going on. And, the way I'm seeing it tied in with that there, try to take away, they're using gun control in America's citizens. For starters, when I think it's part of the amendment where they're not allowed to because it's, constitutional rights, which doesn't make sense. Just based on that, that doesn't make sense already. There's a lot of things behind that. And, there's a lot of things very sinister about that. Like this ammunition thing, where they're trying to basically, ban it all and stuff. That doesn't make sense at all, man. They're trying, they're buying a lot of ammunition and stuff like, like Home Defense Department or whatever it's called in America. So insane amounts, all these things don't make sense, and people have got to realise from this, tying it in with everything that's going on in America mainly, and based on the conspiracy theory with good reason, where I said. And, this is just what I worked out. Basically, why the World War III is going on in America, which the mainstream media, I guarantee, won't even show to the rest of the world. Basically, in America, this martial law, the start of the world martial law, they will control the most populated country in the world, America, North America. And that'll just be the start of it until World War III is over, So, these things are getting crazy. And, you've got to refer back to what I said on the other video, where I said about them basically, that how the American police are already becoming militarized. You see those videos, man, what I was talking about, And if anyone saw that on the news, ironically not mainstream, it was all on, private ones. But, as I said, man, those cops basically on those videos, that's recently they've not been protecting and serving the public. They've been blatantly doing what martial law would involve. If it was applied already, they're pointing guns at people, telling them what to do without those people even, being a threat. As I said, that picture of that lady, right? she's innocent, she's unarmed, she's just a civilian, she's no threat, and there's a load of cops, militarised, man, with assault rifles and that, pointing guns at her, man. It's like the Ferguson protest, man. Again, that was peaceful people just standing there, not far from Ferguson Police Department. They were just basically protesting peacefully, man. And these cops, they came at them like an army with smoke grenade launchers, gas grenade launchers, assault rifle, all of it, man. I think because of the mainstream media keeping all that quiet, I think a lot of America themselves don't even realise that they're already, under martial law in a lot of places, but they don't, they're not fully aware of it like a lot of people already are, who are aware. But, this is already the start of it, man. And all I can, analysing from this Walmart thing where they're closing them down, and, they're like basically will be used as detention centres and, anywhere else which is big in those cities when it starts. It's saying that this martial law is going to start very soon in America. They're getting close to it, tied in with the militarised police and that, which is telling me that, World War III, this World War III is very close, And, it's where people need to stand up and tell the world, stand up and say, we're not going to let this happen, use their democracy rights to say, we don't want this war, soldiers to refuse and say, we're not going to go into this is wrong. There's a lot of things about that, a lot of things. I'm just staying on this line anyway, of, what I'm talking about. We'll move on to, we'll move on to democracy now anyway. You know what I'm talking about, democracy. As I said, right, I'll say this again, based on democracy. Democracy is a right of anyone of any country that has democracy, UK, US especially, basically where the government listen to you and you make the decisions. And you like taxes and that, they swear up in this, you say we disagree, we don't agree with that. And you know what I've analysed, especially from, the UK government itself, that democracy doesn't exist for the British public nowadays. I've seen that, for many years, man. People basically have not realised that their right to democracy exists. They just let the government say, we're going to do this, and they just sit there and go, okay. They don't even, they don't even say anything. They don't realise they have that right, So, when it comes to democracy, you need to stand up for your rights and say, look, we don't accept this, we won't take this, democracy exists, it's our legal right, you serve for us. If you ask us what we need to do, referring back to, especially with, what Immortal Technique said about what happened after 9/11, Afghanistan and that, he basically said, that the American public never even got to use democracy. Ask, President Bush and that Bush administration, they didn't ask the American public, shall we do this war? They went in with their own decision. So, it's crazy, And then we'll keep moving on anyway to what I'm talking about based on this. A lot of things mixed up on my screen, but I'm just trying to keep it all together. And, then these false flag operation things, what I've been talking about. False flag operations, which are basically inside jobs. The base with that problem reaction solution method they use, and what they've used since 9/11 and that. If you've ever seen it and you've got to ask why, when all these terrorist attacks happen, what they call them, it's basically, an attack on to do with the threat of, the public of those countries, say 7/7, 9/11, America, UK, and basically, it should be, they should up the protection, homeland security, or whatever it's called, to make sure things are more security. But haven't you ever noticed that, suddenly when these attacks happen, it's always something to do with the Middle East, and ironically where, where all these countries are, suddenly they get a hold of resources from it, or, they end up remaining in this country for making these false flag attacks and basically causing fear. And then suddenly everyone, gives in when they say, if you, where they actually do use democracy for once, where they've done it, they basically make the public convinced from their fear, we'll protect you, but you've got to let us remain in power, or let us, say that we can remain in the Middle East doing this or that, it makes it so obvious that there was a motive to this attack. And why would these supposed Islamic terrorists make this motive for the advantage for the government where it happened? It's more like the other way, it's more like an advantage for the government. It makes it more so obvious. There's a lot of things that don't make sense about those things, It's always things for their great. I can refer to that, like the false flag thing, referring to these things like the apps thing on your phones and these skins under the chips under the skin thing, where they say it's for your advantage but nothing for ours. But as you found out from the app, it was an advantage for them to track you. The thing I was saying about the chip under the skin, who's to say exactly where they're being sinister and not telling you about that? These false flag attacks where they're basically saying, it's for your security, for your advantage. If we protect you from these terrorists, and basically it's more like an advantage for them, and it ties in, and then I'm just gonna, I've stayed on this topic before I move on. I'm just looking through anything else, right? What I'm looking at. Just stay patient. Right, we'll move on to this thing. We'll stay on this thing to do with this upcoming World War thing, what they're talking about. And basically, I saw an article where basically, President Putin and Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister Israel, and basically they've recently had a meeting, and basically, Netanyahu has been trying to tell President Putin, that he can't arm Iran with self-defensive air missiles and stuff like that, and even I think to take away the nuclear power, but mainly it was to do, with these self-defense missiles, S-300s or stuff, they're Russian, and lined in with not long ago the same Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu. This dude was basically trying to disarm Iran of nuclear power, nuclear capability, basically, so they can't make weapons of mass destruction. Where I see tied in the North Korea thing, so they don't have self-defense. And again, he's trying to make sure President Putin doesn't arm Iran with other weapons of self-defense, these S-300 missiles. I think they're anti-air missiles, so basically if airplanes go over their airspace, they can shoot them down. There's a lot of suspicious things behind that, why he's doing that. There's a lot of things behind that, It makes him more suspicious, with the ties with Netanyahu and that, with everything to do with World War III and Israel itself. So you got to ask yourself these things as well. Let me stay in line with what I'm talking about anyway. Just making sure before I move on and that. Alright, and then we'll move on to staying on with, I just want to stay on top of what I'm talking about. And then we'll move on to, soldiers as well. This is the thing which a lot of soldiers don't realise to do with this war, and what it's really about is they depend on you, soldiers, to do the work for them. There's a skit on Low-Key's album, before the Butterfly Effect track, and a soldier saying basically, though whatever government you work for the army, they rely on every single soldier, whatever they are, Air Force pilot, in control of any kind of missiles or anything military, a soldier, anyone, Navy officer. They depend on all of you to do that war for them, without you standing up and saying, I'll do this, and you basically refusing to do it. No, I won't do this illegal war, whatever, you refuse to do it. They can't even start this war, And what I've gone along these lines is to make sure this gets heard out, and, people know this. A lot of soldiers, I'm not sure if all soldiers know this, but, there's a lot of soldiers, a lot to count, not just America, but UK, these soldiers involved in these past wars since the Gulf War and that, who have been made homeless and that. And basically, these soldiers since the Gulf War and every single war commencing from that, they've been made homeless, they're just like you, right? They were told as much as you are. you're protecting the country, you're protecting the men and women of this country, the kids of the country, all that, the security and that. And basically, these soldiers ended up in a different route, right? They went and did all this stuff, you know what they go through, post-traumatic distress, see a lot of nasty shit, mental health problems. And then, they're thrown on the streets when they come back home and treated like that and that. And as I know, like the thing to do with soldiers in the army, that everyone's like family, right? And so if you see these soldiers as brothers and sisters, right, do you agree that these people who did, what you're going to be doing, are being told that you might be doing in this possible war with Russia and that? Do you think it's fair that they got trapped like that? They went through a lot of shit, and they were told they're protecting their country, and then they come back and basically the government say to them, you don't mean shit to us, fuck off, and they just throw them on the streets and that. That ain't right, and I tried to find the links and stuff to show stats. It's probably in the 15,000 or even more, maybe hundreds of thousands of troops, that have basically been put in that situation. And, they can have families and that, kids and stuff with them who are on the streets with them. And, I don't think that's fair. When these people were lied to, for starters, they do the dirty work for these people and then, they get shot on. That's not right. As I said, I'll quickly say, if anyone who's a soldier listens about this dude, a soldier who had his wife and that, he was thrown on the streets, and that's what happened to him. I think he served in the Gulf War. It would have been on Facebook. He was basically trying to look for support from the public, the British public, in that. And that was his situation. He had to make his own charity, from the public who supported him as a soldier. That ain't right, So basically, well, after this World War III, it won't be the same as those previous soldiers, You'll either be, part of those people who are basically telling people what to do and maybe even have to kill them as one of your orders if they rebel, This thing's going to be very serious. Or you will end up being shot on like the rest of them, You're just being treated like a tool. And as soon as you're used, you either be treated more of one and have to do bad stuff, or you end up being one of those people who are being ordered by this world martial law. It's up to you to decide on that. And then we'll move on to just keeping on topic what I'm talking about. To do with, mainly to do with this, and we'll keep this as brief as possible. I'm trying to keep this, it's not a long video. To do with, like this central bank thing. And, what I was talking about, and you can look this up if the central bank in America, Federal Reserve, it's privately owned for starters, where apparently it's owned by the government, but it's been found out it's not. And, basically, this money system and that, what I've been seeing, as I said, the ties with J.F. Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln, you've got to ask yourself why these two presidents who mainly wanted to, basically abolish these private banks and, make money easier for the American public so they didn't have to work as hard for it, have an easier life, basically, why they both got assassinated when they had both, principles or whatever they were planning to do. It makes you wonder, because to me that's saying whoever owns these banks had them killed. And, the ties with who it's been said who owns them and that, Rothschilds and that, that's weird, again, who you never hear of in politics, and yet, apparently they're nothing to do with it, and they state they're nothing to do with any of this, and then I'll stay on topic, to do with banks and that, people will got to ask themselves, why these banks, what I've seen, and it's probably from sources, but, there was an article to it. I downloaded the photo on my phone. Basically, it's something to do with banks. And basically, what it's saying, right, is banks collected over $30 billion last year in overdraft fees, right? Another way of saying that banks took $30 billion from people that had no money. Because, you ask yourself, I don't see the point to these overdraft fees in the first place, there's no reason for them. And it basically, that's what it is, these people who get overdraft fees, and as seen from that statistic, of what this is an American source, that, these overdraft fees resulted in £30 billion for those bank banks which are actually owned by one main people, Rothschild. Basically, the Rothschilds got 30 billion free in their pocket. You got to ask yourself, why? Tied in with what I've been talking about. And, that's just another way. We're just staying on this thing anyway, what I'm talking about. And then I'll move on to, like the money system itself and that. And basically, the money system is, and what people don't realise. Basically, and I'll try and put this as brief as possible. Where a lot of people say they slave away for money, they're actually saying what they are of this thing called money when they say that term. You are slaves, people who do that, based on what I was talking about, money, inflation, tax and that. Everyone out there, and tied in with these bank overdraft fees and mortgages and debts, and you basically do slave away your lives, as I said, most of your lives, for this thing called money, working away most of your life full time if you do it, that's a lot of hours. And you end up with, wasting your life away for it. And what it is, it's a prison. It's like a slavery system that you can't see or touch or smell. You don't even realise it, because the perception and the way you define slavery is something like the African slave trade, where people were chained up and being whipped and being treated like animals. You see yourself, it's perceived a different way, because, you walk around these streets and that, you can get up and go everywhere. You're not being told what to do. But what you don't realise is you basically are, being told what to do. You're basically being controlled. You're being controlled by this stuff called money. And if you don't realise that, you've got to wake up and realise, because it does control your life, So, there's a lot of things behind that, man. I'm just staying on what I've got anyway, until I move on to what I'm talking about. I'm just going through it. It's in different order, so just stay with me. And then we'll move on to, what I've noticed with the UK government anyway. And what I've been doing is analysis and comparison, basically seeing 3 different articles with 3 different political leaders, and all I can simply put is, Ed Miliband, David Cameron, Nigel Farage. Basically, they're bribing people to vote for them. And if anyone's seen those newspaper articles, basically they're saying, vote for us, we'll cut down this, on your taxes so you don't have to pay as much taxes. When saying, we'll give you free child healthcare or something like that, education, without having to pay for it if you work. And they're just basically, if you can look at that simply in another way, it's basically bribery, They're bribing you to vote for them. They ain't even, it's real bad, they're not even, that's what I'm seeing on these articles. I don't know if they've said they're going to do this and that. But all I know is they've made sure that it's to do with bribery, to do with money. This money system you slave away for, they're basically bribing to give you more money or take away less, if you vote for them. Nothing like, we'll do this for the elderly, we'll make sure, this is that. They just basically saying, we'll give you money if you vote for us, And that's how it just shows how desperate, especially the UK public who work in that, are desperate for this money, that if they're offered the money, less money from their taxes or given more for their work, that's how it shows they rely on it, that they'll use that to vote on them, and they know that, and it just shows from analysing who they are, that they know you as the British public rely on this money and slave away for it so much that if they bribe you using this bribing thing, because like a few years ago before, I think like when Labour were going to go in, Tony Blair and that, they were using actually more policies and that to do with more important topics and stuff like, more things. They weren't just basically saying, vote for us and we'll bribe you, and that isn't right. And bribery is illegal anyway, apparently, to the government. So why are they doing that? So yeah, you got to think about that as well. And then we'll move on to, I'm just staying online with what I'm looking at my screen anyway. Making sure I don't miss anything. Nearly finished on this recording, so it should be as short as possible. Right, just making sure I don't miss anything out. That's what happens when I don't put it in order. You know, and you know this thing to do with this NWO thing. You know, based on the line, some people, you know, people will critically thinking themselves. The people who don't, when they come to, oh, how come elections are going on and stuff, and all everything's normal if this new world order world martial law is coming along. We know along that thing, you know, that's the basis of it. You know, it's like being distracted. You know, it's like a flanking technique in the army, they call it. You know, where they're basically suppressing you with distraction. What army would be firing at the enemy with bullets, with fire. And while you're distracted, they're basically going to flank you and attack you from the side and catch you with your pants down. And this is what I was talking about, this new world order, a.k.a. world martial law. You know, you're going to be distracted, especially this World War III thing. And as they're trying to keep everyone asleep about and trying to make this new world order thing a conspiracy and a load of bullshit, it's exactly right. It's a distraction technique. Because when it comes along, nobody's going to have rebelled, you know. They're going to let this world war happen, even though they have the rights to make it stop and say we don't want this war any. And, you know, when it happens, that's exactly what will happen, you know. Tied in with what's about to happen in America and what I said at the start of the match. You know, if anyone, even when I started seeing it, if anyone even from the UK or most parts of the world listens to this, you know, if they go and look at all this stuff that's going on in America, or even grasp the thought of America itself going into martial law and all this crazy stuff, they'd think that's insane. You know, they'd think that's impossible, that wouldn't happen there, because that's what I thought. But you know what I'm seeing, and a lot of stuff is saying it's going to happen. So, you know, you've got to ask yourself, you know, on a realistic level, you know, instead of living in fairy tale land and being closed-minded, because what I'm talking about, you know, and I'll lead on to why I know of a lot of these things. So yeah, you know, you got to take this thing seriously because it will be serious. And you know, I haven't even involved the satanic stuff and stuff based on this. I'm just talking about realistic levels with all that stuff, so you can look at it on a serious level. You know, based on this thing where I set what they call the third eye ability, you know, be able to see things before they happen. As I said, when I was a kid, I consciously playing a game simulator, you know, did something that near enough what happened in 9/11. You know, again in 2003, 2004, I had a premonition, you know, of what was going to happen in 7/7. Not accurate, but I knew it was going to be based on that. And, you know, because I could predict it. And, you know, what I put in this video is something else, proof that I have ability to do this, not let alone again, but I know March the 3rd, I think it was, the 13th, this year, 2014. Basically what happened, I wrote a track called Victory Is Mine, right, to a Rusty Jux track, and basically I mentioned there's bars in it, basically rhymes that say scorched bin, right, pardon me. And, you know, basically what happened the next day, when I was walking along a Rockingham Road in my town, Kettering, right, I saw this bin on fire, called a fire engine and that, you know, and everything that happened after that. And, you know, as I was walking past as the fire service got there, I was walking away and I just put my earphones in and this song was playing. And as soon as the earphones touched my ears, you know, that line, the start of that track, the rhyme started it, you know, scorched bin. As soon as those earphones touched my ears, you know, that scorched bin line came in. And, you know, all I remember doing, eyes froze and I looked round and I thought scorched bin, that bin was on fire. And, you know, I was tripping out. And the thing about this is, you know, it was like those rhymes were subliminal before, you know, I never noticed them out of all the lyrics in the track. You know, obviously I'd notice it more, but regardless, you know, this woke me up and I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, I wrote that track before this happened. And, you know, scorched bins, you know, basically scorched on fire bin. You know, that's just one of the things. And, you know, this thing, you know, I wrote this track, right, and basically I think it was Criminal, what I did it to. And, you know, basically I mentioned gin and tonic, right, to this track called Criminal, what I made. And basically, you know, I'm mentioning gin and tonic, right? And somewhere along the line, I sensed it was something to do with gin and David Cameron. And basically earlier today, right, I looked it up on Google to see if he drinks it, right? And it was weird, you know, he actually drinks that. You know, and it's weird, man. More than coincidental, following on to what I'm talking about. But, you know, if people can't realise that I really have some kind of ability to see things before they happen and know things that, you know, it should be impossible to know, unless I have a psychic ability, you know, then I really can't help people in that. And, you know, this is why, you know, based on that thing, which I believe is mainly to do with me, why Theresa May, David Cameron, I think Ed Miliband as well, they're all trying to make, you know what I mean, suddenly make me mainly a criminal for talking about this stuff. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, even I explained in the last thing I made that it's stupid anyway to try and make this thing, and it doesn't make sense based on the law itself. You know, why am I such a threat if, you know, if I'm just like David Icke, who, you know, they used to ridicule and probably still do, you know, as a nutter and that. Why am I different to him? Because even that dude's posted himself who I discovered this from, and these memes that basically are saying, you know, they're trying to shut people like me and him up because they know we're telling the truth. I mean, it's so obvious because they're trying to make it a criminal offence. You know, before that, before it wasn't anything, you know, and now suddenly it's serious, you know, that they've got to make it a criminal offence. And, you know, how is it a criminal offence as well, right, when me and David Icke are actually talking about exposing crime, you know, and we have the freedom of speech to talk about this stuff, and it's based on conspiracy theory. You know, it's not accusations, it's conspiracy theory. You know, there's a reason behind it, and, you know, if it's mainly to do with me, which I suspect, it's just telling me mainly more, tied in with that they must know that I have the ability to know things that, you know, they know I shouldn't know. It's basically telling me, you know, they're trying to fuck things up for me because they know, you know, whatever I've got is a threat to them and their secrets. I mean, I don't know if, as I said, I don't know if a lot of people, if my view counters are fucked up on my YouTube videos and stuff, and there's a lot of people who have actually woke up and realised the truth, and that's why they've trying to bring it in, trying to keep less people awake, sleep. You know, based on what I've been saying before, because they'll rebel and they'll realise that they have rights and they're being taken. I don't know, but, you know, there's something about me, you know, where, you know, basically, I don't see why a lot of people don't trust me out there, you know. You know, when I seem to be able to prove that I know things, see things before they happen, and know things with it being impossible to know, you know, only from the power of my mind and not being given information, you know, and, you know, and let alone I'm a person who's actually talking about serious things, you know. If I'm supposedly be what they're trying to class me as a terrorist, and how can I be when I'm actually exposing crime and, you know, as I said, a terrorist is who use violence, and that, which I don't, and all those things. And when I talk about explosions and guns, you know, I don't even do that. You know, I use words, man. And, you know, I use conspiracy theories, so it's stupid anyway. You know, all I know is I'm a threat, you know. I feel like I'm a threat to them. And, you know, it makes it more obvious by what they're doing, you know, trying to criminalise people like me. Suddenly, when it was something to do with me, when this thing started coming around, you know, it's like they know that, you know, I've got this ability, and they know that it's fucking things up for them, you know, based on this conspiracy to do with all this stuff what I've been talking about. And then we'll move on to just making sure I stay on the same line as everything. I'm nearly finished on this recording, so be patient. Just seeing what else lined in with this. And then, yeah, we'll move on to, you know, this tying thing with political activist MCs, someone like me, but, you know, mainly more two dudes. Low-key UK MC, dangerous US MC. You know, low-key, if you've seen the Obama Nation video on YouTube, you know, it was banned off the charts, basically. What I saw that it was going to go on the charts, you know, like whatever music channels, popular music channels in the UK. I know that much. And basically it was banned. And you've got to ask yourself, you know, based on what the UK government it was self before this thing came along, people like him, David Icke and me were nutters and weren't speaking the truth. Why did Low-Key's Obama Nation video get banned all of a sudden? If it was just talking bullshit, and it, you know, it was just a load of bullshit. Because, you know, that again, that makes it more blatantly obvious that they banned his video to do, which is a political track which basically exposes, Obama administration and everything to do with America, the American government in the past, because it's speaking the truth. And, they don't want those people to listen to that and say, whoa, and go on the same path as I did and a lot of other people did. Basically wake up and see the world for what it is. Just keep all that dumbed down music in the charts to keep kids asleep and, make them feel uneducated, because that track's educated for starters, So, it makes them more obvious about it, and more suspicious to why it was banned. Because I don't see anything like that in the charts anyway, especially, I don't really follow the UK charts, but I never have anyway, anything like that. At the start of that track, it basically shows the facts, I can't remember exactly what it is, but basically how many countries the US government have attacked, and invaded since the 40s or something. It's insane. So, there's a reason why that was banned and that, and why it never got shown to the public. Because, this is based on that thing to do with, and what I talk about before I move on to Dangerous, the news. And, basically, these based on where these mainstream media dictates to you what to think, and to, without using critical thinking, a skill you possess. That I've never seen any, even on UK BBC ITV, anybody, truth talkers, conspiracy theorists, whatever you want to call them, about 7/7 or 9/11. Come on BBC News, especially 7/7 as it's UK News, BBC, whatever. And put in their voice. They've not even been invited to say, well, I think this was suspicious because of this and that, like the dude who made the 7/7 Ripple Effect documentary. You've got to ask yourself why those people never get invited to have their voice to why about something that has good reason to it. And then I tie into this, if you listen to this and you follow me, and if you remember this clip, then you need to share if you know what I'm talking about. What I've mentioned before, basically an American news channel, Fox or CNN or something like that, where that dude, a 9/11 truther, is being interviewed. This is the first time basically one of those people were allowed on mainstream news, and basically, that dude got ridiculed. They were putting that dude down as soon as he started saying the suspicions and that behind it being a 9/11 inside job, They were just taking the piss out of him, making fun of him, And, when it comes to anyone else, political leaders, or anyone to do with anything minor, or even celebrity news, you never see those news reporters ridiculing them or taking the piss out of them. So why, when it comes to 9/11 truther, this 9/11 truther dude, they were just putting this dude down, making fun of him, being disrespectful. He was a guest on that show. They were making it more obvious, that they're trying to make him look like a joke, so people don't wake up. And there's a lot of suspicious things behind that, tied in with, the low-key Abomination video, why that was banned. And then again, Dangerous, USMC, this dude again, who I personally saw, I've got his album, The Whistleblower. This dude I saw on his Facebook page, once he was saying about giving up and that, basically he wasn't popular. With Low-Key, I'm not sure Low-Key's popularity in the UK, compared to him. But all I will, from analysis is these two dudes aren't as popular as they should be. I think Immortal Technique as a conspiracy theorist, truth talker, MC is the most exposed, the one who's got the most exposure. I think it's mainly because his main basis isn't just, like full political tracks. Dangerous and Low-Key seem to be based on that, mainly with their albums. So you got to ask yourself why those dudes mainly don't get exposure. And to me, that's saying because, they're just being kept under the covers, and, because the less listeners who listen to their CDs and albums, let alone, see their videos in the charts and that, the more people will be asleep and won't wake up. Someone like me who used to be like that, it's weird how those people, same as David Icke, that dude, any conspiracy theorist, why, even people who talk about that stuff verbally are kept on the low, I'm nearly finished anyway. I'm just looking through what else I've got in it. And this is another thing based on Snowden again. What I put in again and try and make it more simply explained. It's it's weird, you know, that basically how this dude is basically portrayed as a traitor, right? For exposing a crime, basically. You know, they're saying he was a threat to national security and has fucked up the security against national security in America and that. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, what has this dude done? You know, all he's doing and the stuff he's exposed so far is, you know, showing proof that, like to do with Israel, a Mossad agent, you know, the leader of that ISIS group actually belongs to Israel and isn't an Islamic group and has connections with the CIA, who the CIA belong to and are one of the people that are calling Edward Snowden a criminal, and yet the CIA are the criminals themselves for making up a fake Islamic movement, you know, an artificial movement. You know, it's an inside thing already. You know, this dude basically told the truth, you know, about US citizens' privacy being violated and that, you know, which the American government were doing. So, you know, when they're saying, you know, when these articles and that biased articles are saying traitor and this, traitor and that, you know, doesn't make sense, you know. It's far from that, in my opinion. You know, I already explained that on one of my other videos more thoroughly, and I'm just trying to keep this one as whatever as brief as possible. And then we'll move on. We're nearly finished anyway now. Moving on to, well, you know, basically with what I'll leave this thing with, because I'm trying to keep this as brief as possible. You know, this thing, I'm asking myself, you know, I already mentioned this, but why am I such a threat out? You know, why have I suddenly become a threat? This is critical thinking. When I've suddenly came along with this conspiracy theorist thing, why have I become such a threat to the UK? You know, that I have to be criminalised suddenly. You know, when I come along after David Icke, you know, why wasn't he classed as a threat? Or, you know, extremist terrorist, you know, before I started talking about this stuff. You know, that's why I'm asking. And to me, that tells me, you know, what we were saying before, that it means that I'm a threat because I'm telling the truth and then waking people up. Because, you know, it contradicts what I was saying before. As I said, you know, basically, we're nutters and that, you know, all of a sudden it's a crime. You know, they make it more obvious without realising. You know, they give themselves away. And if you can't realise that when you listen to this, you know, that they basically know I'm talking the truth. You know, I'm not, you know, I don't know why I sense that I feel that I'm being called a threat to national security as well. You know, I can't, you know, a threat to national security, first of all, is a terrorist, which I'm not, you know. I'm not walking around with, you know, weapons or any kind of stuff like that for starters, which they claim is to do with this terrorism thing, you know. All I'm doing is talking what they call conspiracy theories, you know, and, you know, putting together research. And then again, you know, someone like Edward Snowden, which they called a threat to national security, you know, he actually worked for the Secret Services and actually took documents. I don't have any documents or any shit that belongs to them in the first place. So therefore, again, it contradicts, even if that statement came along, you know. Again, what makes them more hypocritical, where they were trying to, before I came along, they were calling people like David Icke and that nutters, and they're talking bullshit. All of a sudden, you know. So yeah, you know, it doesn't make sense. So yeah, you know, I've tried to keep this as brief as possible, you know. Just trying to make sure I've got everything covered, you know, before I sign out. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of things to do with this, but mainly, you know, people really need to think about what I said at the start about, you know, the thing to do with this martial law in America and that, and you know what I've been talking about, where it will lead from. Basically because, you know, you've got to ask yourself, firstly, the Defensive Home Department or whatever they're called, right? Whatever they're called, or DOD or something like that, have bought billions, you know, billions and billions of rounds and that, you know, mainly for their federal forces, the police for starters, in the last couple of years. It's unbelievably amount that, you know, basically if you calculated to every man that was given to in those forces, you know, that they'll have enough to last for a year or something stupid like that. You know, they've got stupid amounts. You know, they've overloaded themselves for starters. You know, this thing to do with this, you know, based on theory of good reason. You know, why they're closing down these Walmarts and that, which weirdly enough could be used to, if martial law was applied, you know, to crowd people up into them, like prison camps and that, you know, so they're confined and that. To do with this skin, you know, the IRRD thing or whatever they're called, skin chips, you know, to identify people for, say, if this martial law came along, which it will, and someone escapes, that, you know, they'd be able to identify if they were escaped or not, you know, or if they were already, you know, in the system as a prisoner as well. Things like that, you know, and the main things to focus on. There's a lot of things weird about it, you know, and people don't really take it serious, you know. The thing is, you know, that's why, you know, another thing I used on these concepts, what are these things, you know, like this New World Order thing, you know, how it was ridiculed. That's why I used a different way of explaining it, you know, a different context instead of saying New World Order, because the way people have been, you know, for many years, how conspiracy theorists, when they were talking about that, and the way the mainstream media itself and a lot of other trolls have, you know, just ridiculed it as Illuminati or all that stuff, the Satanist and all this crazy stuff, that as soon as they hear the word New World Order and that, they're like, they know all that stuff, it's basically a joke. So, you know, what I basically put it across as, which it is, what this New World Order is without the Satanism and all that, is basically a world martial law. And it's a more realistic way to see it, you know, and that can be applied if, you know, if governments decided to do that after this World War III, you know, like David Icke said himself, you know, after World War III, the global agenda, you know, they'd say, look, basically put it across as this, they could say after World War III, even if you don't believe this and you're sceptical, they could easily say, look, we've had 9/11, 7/7, we've had ISIS, we've had Madrid, we've had Sydney, we've had Paris, all these attacks, and now World War III's come along, all those WMDs that went off and all that stuff, it's just getting too bad. You know, United Nations, NATO, you know, United Nations and that have decided to, you know, basically, we've decided to apply this thing called the New World Order martial law, and, you know, basically that could happen. They, you know, after this World War III ends, then they say it's over. You know, you could be sitting in your living room in the world watching the news, like every morning when you wake up, seeing general stuff, and basically they could just turn around and say, this is the world martial law, you know, we're taking away your rights, you listen to us, you know, none of this Satanist shit, just imagine it, you know, and then suddenly all they'd have to do is bring in armies and that into your town, police and all that stuff, you know, walking around saying, do this, do that, you know, and your rights are gone. And, you know, it's as easy as that, you know. If they wanted to apply martial law anywhere across the world tomorrow in any country, they could do it, and it could be done as a world thing. And the excuse from that would be the World War III thing and all those bad things that happened. You know, and that's just basically what I'd be do, because, you know, this is based on, you know what David Icke was saying about one world army, one world government, you know, basically being dictating to you. Well, you know, martial law is being dictated to you for starters, so, you know, it ties in with this world martial law / New World Order thing he was on about. And, you know, as to do with Thailand, as far as I know, that just happened the next day without anyone realising, you know. Suddenly people in Thailand woke up. It would have been like that. People in Thailand probably woke up, right? And then suddenly, you know, that Thailand government, you know, Thai government was saying, you know, this is a martial law in Thailand, you do what we tell you to do, or your rights are gone. And that can happen with, you know, a world martial law. And that's how easy it could happen, you know. And it's tied with United Nations, you know. All I know is, you know, every country apart from what I will see as Iran, North Korea, Russia and China, you know, all those other countries will do the same as everyone else, and those countries, as far as I'm seeing it, will be those countries that, you know, all those governments will say this is world martial law, basically, and you'll just sit there and you'll be shocked, you know, especially if you live in a country like the UK, you'd find it unbelievable, you know, which I think why a lot of people can't even grasp the thought of the way they see society and how they're free and that. but it could happen any time, It's like Thailand, though, as far as I know. That's a peaceful country like here, And again, I'm sure the people in Thailand were shocked when they woke up to that, and it could happen to the UK. Let's just say that, And when that comes along, people will just be sitting there, but it'll be too late, and they'll be hopeless, and they'll have nothing. They won't be able to do about it. So why I put this across is you have the chance to use your rights to democracy, and even the soldiers and that, to stand up and say either the soldiers refuse to do this because they know the score, or they just say they don't want to do it, and everyone stands down, the more the better. And the public of those countries, wherever it is, UK, anywhere, say, look, we have rights to democracy, so when this war comes along, or even before, you say we don't want a war, you're supposed to serve for us, so we don't want this war to happen, because, it's a serious thing, man. Put aside to, the Satanism and stuff, what's to do with this, these Rothschilds and all that, which is even more serious, but just see it on a realistic side, being told what to do. Basically, if you went on the run, they could kill you and that, shoot you and that, it's serious. And, as I said, addressing along to the parents, and that, obviously, because parents love their kids and they look out for the kids, mainly, that'll be your kids, it will live from there under whatever happens and past this world martial law, we'll call it, they'll live their life different to how you've lived like your life so far, they'll just be living as prisoners, and I don't know, what more to it would happen, but all I know is, what follows on from this thing to do, where we'll talk about the, the non-realistic side, what people see it as, to do with this Illuminati connection and that, which is, what I've said on my previous videos, which is connected to the $1 bill and that, with the Illuminati pyramid on it itself, which says order the new world, subliminal message, and everything else, basically Illuminati, Lucifer, and those people, they're basically Satanists, right? All I know is they rape kids, they sacrifice kids, as in kill them for sacrifices. They eat people and that. They eat people. They're cannibals and that. They're really weird people. And that's how sick-minded you are. They are. Sorry. Well, if they're listening, then they'll know anyway. But all I know is there's things like that, man. And these people aren't right. I mean, you've got to think to yourself, which makes it obvious they're like that in the first place. That they're the type of people who deliberately kill people in 9/11 and 7/7 and other places, even invaded the Middle East and and killed people there just for money and resources. Deliberate wars. Like the 7/7, which is 7/7 bus, the number 40 bus or whatever. With a subliminal message saying outright terror, bold and brilliant. I mean, that was a subliminal message, and you've got to think the people who deliberately did that, that's their mind state. They're not normal. So, if you're really concerned for yourselves and everything, you even have to just consider that. But, that's all I was saying, this topic, and I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. And, the more people I can try and wake up and that, the more... the better it'll be. Because, things get serious, man. And, all I know my senses are saying, and even more, even if it's not to do with senses, based on that thing I said at the start of the recording, with these Walmarts suddenly closing down, and, and everything I've said, a lot of things tied together, and, where it's to tie with, that Russia is about to go to war any time with the West and everyone else, that it's right on the edge of happening. And, people have the chance to turn that around and stand up for their rights, or soldiers refuse to be a part of it. So, if I can try and spread the word, and you can share this video and all that stuff, then, hopefully I can you can spread the word, get more people to wake up. Right, Mace signing out, peace. This goes out to all those who expose corruption from their governments, who are helping their people but destroyed by them by media deception. This goes out to those who fight for peace in the world, who condemn the wars and killing of innocent people over money and blood. This goes out to the freedom fighters trying to bring justice to the people they lost in false flag operations caused by corrupt governments. Welcome to England, the country that shattered me, this place that's supposedly my country, 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 my country.